He had an urbane voice, yet commanding and respected, as he took sports to homes of thousands, whether it was rugby league, softball, or the Pacific Games. Mark Sapias had to be heard on radio or behind the cameras on television. He apparently succumbed to kidney failure and died on the 27th of January, age 50. This tribute from Bradley Gregory.
If there is one thing in life we cannot avoid, it would be death. The sound of wailing, as family, friends, and relatives lament tunes of their final goodbyes. A send-off to a beloved loved one into eternal living. Bob Marley once said, "The greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him." He was the sensation, the Mr. Go-To in every essence of sports broadcast.
It's been 3 days of hectic competition here at the
Mark Sapias was the voice, the face, the master of his trade.
4 men's and 4 women's pools. All expectations are with the bigger centres, Port Moresby and Ley, but the smaller associations are here to knock off the big boys.
He was inserted into the early days of analog media, working with MTV and later the National Broadcasting Corporation as the executive producer for sports. It was in NBC where he worked alongside other great voices, the late Tom Allow, Ori Kenya, other senior NBC broadcasters, and Rod Pierce.
Pleasure to speak with you today on a man who has contributed immensely to the media industry in Papua New Guinea. In the professional life, you have worked with him and have shared many moments with him. Tell us about the experience of working with Mark Sapias.
Experience goes back to NBC broadcasting the match of the day at the Lloyd Robson Oval in 1990. And that was good, that was enjoyable, but it got exciting when with the Winfield Sports Tonight developed in the mid-90s, 1995, where we did the match of the day and touched on many other sports. And Mark, of course, headed that up and was partly involved in the overall development of that and TV as a whole, because he initially was a news broadcaster.
NBC's sports boss, Efata Samuel, recalls his early days in NBC and under Sapias.
So I used to play rugby union, and he said, "Well, Tomala, you go and call that game while I'm playing." And I was assigned to netball. And he's Tom calling. Mark Sapias was playing number 10, which was 5'8". They call them fly halves now. And every time he passed the ball and he's telling these people to move forward, the people who pass the ball. And Tom would say, "Mark, you're supposed to run with the ball, don't just pass it around." And Tom, be careful, you'll be talking behind his back. If he hears this, you're going to be in big trouble. So those were the fun times. And then he went and he called the main game of the rugby union. And that's when he became, we all knew that he was a very good rugby caller. He could call any sport.
Sapias was a man full of smiles. People who've come across him say not for once have they seen him angry. He loved his wife when he was young to his final breath. She loved him back, caring for him in times of sickness. His charisma and affection for his job was one thing he held at heart.
If there was one thing special about Mark that you saw, what would it be?
Yeah, good question. Certainly character. He was quite a witty, quite a funny man. But what impressed me the most, and still does, was his ability to confront the media job at hand and carry it out.
In 1991, Mark Sapias called the then South Pacific Games on NBC Radio, which was heard right around the country and the Pacific. In 2015, the master was brought back to call the games. He did while he was still sick.
In 1991, as we all know, he called the athletics as if though he had called it for many years. And he called the athletics that went into homes. People who heard him, felt as if though they were at the games, at the athletics field, track. And then came up to 2015, he was quite ill. He was going through his illness. And because that's his passion in sports, we recalled him to Port Moresby, and he called athletics and rugby sevens and rugby nines. Yeah, during his illness, and we, as you and I, who have been sports journalists, sports commentators, presenters, we give time for, we thank people like them.
In fact, the ground itself is probably one of the best, or it's not the best ground in the country. We've done matches all year through the Digital Cup and so forth.
Sapia's broadcast and sports go a long way. One might guess it started at an early age. Mark was born to Austin and Neri Sapias on the 6th of December 1965 at Boram General Hospital, Wewak, East Sepik Province. Born in East Sepik, Sapias was from across the Bismarck. The eldest of four, his mom from New Britain was a teacher and dad from New Ireland was a broadcaster, working with Sir Michael Somare in the studios of NBC. At an early age, Mark was already proving to be good in soccer and rugby. One of his school soccer teammates, Frank Farina from Gordons, went on to represent and coach Australia. Mark travelled to Australia in 1975 for a schoolboys tour. The young family later moved to Sydney, Australia when Mark was only 8 years old. Mark and younger sister, Anne, started school there. Mark again proved he was elusive when he was selected to represent New South Wales for the Trans-Tasman Shield Tour of New Zealand in 1977.
So he represented Australia, you could say he was the first Papua New Guinean to represent Australia in a sport, regardless of what age division it was.
The following year, he won 4 gold medals in the 100-meter hurdles, long jump, and relay. His sporting career ended in 1982 when he had a serious knee injury. He diverted his skills to just calling games.
So PNG managed to pick this up and go forward through luck.
When the new station, MTV, first went on air, Mark was the operator who rolled out the first tape that began transmission. Apart from working in the operations department, Mark also presented the news.
Tackles are PNG now in a good attacking position. They need to score next to stay in touch here.
Boys on NBC Radio was sports in every sense. He basically could call every sport that is known to PNG. He was also the sports face and voice on Kundutu TV's outside broadcast, calling the local B-Mobile Cup, which is now the Digital Cup.
It's not the best ground in the country. We've done matches all year through the Digital Cup and so forth. This has to be the #1 ground in the country.
He also called international matches.
Keeps the ball alive as they work it out wide now. This is Josh Morris. Morris runs away from one.
The media is like family to Mark, so is his family in the media. Mark and sister Anne hosted Kundutu's coverage of the 2012 PNG Games in East New Britain.
First up tonight, Anne?
Yes, Mark, we have a very special guest.
Mark Sapias was also involved in Master of Ceremony duties in various occasions. Mark felt ill in 2014. It was then that he knew he had a failing kidney. Seeking help, he went as far as Cairns. Mark had only made half a century when he was bowled out. He leaves behind wife Margaret and 4 children, Richard, Jaylee, Vanessa and Anthony, and his only grandson, Tristan Lee Miguel. The SPPNG Hunters on their first trial game of 2016 wore black armbands in honor of the late Sapias, an honor given to a man who has devoted his life to promoting the good attributes of sports.
His biggest legacy will be that he was a mentor to many. And there's many of the broadcasters and journalists now or media personalities that owe their development to Mark. And he was a unique person on that too. Not only had the talent to broadcast, but he had the talent to pass it on.
Abraham Lincoln once said, "In the end, it's not the years in your life that counts, it's the life in your ears."
Bradley Gregory with a tribute of the late Mark Sapias. If you want to comment or provide feedback to any of our stories, please visit our website at pngtonight.com. This has been PNG Tonight. We'll do it again at the same time tomorrow. Good night.